So it's finally happening. We've been like in talks practically since the election happened. Tina Spizakis running for Congress, New Jersey 9th. Welcome to the show. It's good to have you on to kind of talk about what's been going on lately in your district, because like it's given us migraines. It's amazing that you're here and in like decent mental shape. Actually,
yeah, we were laughing before the show.
Yeah. If what had happened to you had happened to me, I'd be just like full Alex Jones, crushing Coke cans, screaming at the heavens. You seem very composed.
Oh yeah, I threw a couple of pans at the windows. No, I'm just kidding.
That was yesterday before you got here.
Yeah.
Yep.
For people who have never heard of you, which seems like kind of unlikely because you've been very active on, not just in your neighborhood, but not just on video, not just on TV, but also on social media and things like that. For people who don't live in Jersey at all, and maybe they're seeing or hearing from you for the first time, can you tell people a little bit about yourself and your story?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks. And thank you for having me on the show. I really look forward to it. So my name is Zina Spizakis. I am a first-generation immigrant. My parents brought me over when I was a baby. I worked for the better part of the last 3 decades. I've built and operated companies on Wall Street and in clean energy. And I decided to run for Congress in New Jersey's 9th Congressional District, which is in northern New Jersey, just west of New York City. Because in a safely blue district, our representative was not very representative of the people he was, supposedly pledged fealty to. And the one issue for me, obviously, working in clean energy, was the climate crisis. And as a mother, after I read the UN's IPCC report that came out about a year and a half ago at this point, almost 2, where the best scientists in the world tell you you've got about 12 years to cut your emissions by about half, you worry about it. And the thing that really terrified me about that report is that I study the science. I'm in a graduate degree program right now, and every single climate model that I've ever analyzed has always overestimated the amount of time in which we have to react to the climate. Things are simply accelerating and happening much faster than than the vast majority of scientists could have predicted, right, for a variety of reasons. And so, I've got a 6-year-old, I've got an 8-year-old. I'm going to be long gone by the time they have to deal with the worst effects of it. What was my representative doing? Bill Pascrell has really done nothing in the last 25 or so years that he's been in office. He claims he's a progressive, but he doesn't act like a progressive. And we can talk about a variety of issues that he's voted and done, we believe, the wrong things in. But I'm really in it because I am a supporter of the Green New Deal. He actually came out and supported the Green New Deal about a week after I announced. Funny footnote on that one.
You're already a progressive who gets stuff done.
Right, 1 week after I announced. We could talk about the police union money too. That's an interesting story.
Let's come back to that.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the political character of your district. What's it like up there? What's going on in neighborhoods and things like that?
Yeah, so my district is highly diverse. It is a safely Democratic district. I think the Democrats outnumber the Republicans by about 4 to 1. So there's really no reason you shouldn't be progressive across the board up here. It is ethnically very diverse. You have a large immigrant populations from the Middle East, from Latin America, from Asia. It is socioeconomically very diverse. There are people who are struggling at the poverty level with no health insurance in the same district as people owning $10 million homes. Right. So it is A to Z. As I got into this, I started sort of uncovering all these injustices, and this sort of fighting for justice. And my family actually has got some history to it. I mean, my grandfather sheltered somebody from the Nazis, right? So it goes back a few generations. We've got some of the highest uninsured rates in the entire state. And Bill Pascrell has taken over $1.1 million in just corporate money from big pharma and healthcare. So that's the sort of like disconnect that I'm seeing from our representative versus what the suffering is on the ground. So very diverse district. So
I think that's a story that we see a lot in politics, but I think we see across the country like representatives who are increasingly out of step with the demographics or just the political character of their district. Yet it's very rare that incumbents like get the boot, and I know that to be especially rare in New Jersey. What is it like running in New Jersey? Because I can't think of any AOC type stories or any stories of incumbents losing in that state. So what's going on up there?
Well, New Jersey's got a very specific set of, shall we say, obstacles to it. When I got into this race a year and a half ago, I was warned by, politicos in Washington, D.C. that you've got no chance in New Jersey because it is, and this was quotes from them, I'm paraphrasing, out of the 50 states, probably the most corrupt as far as protecting incumbents. There is a funny way that the ballots are structured here in New Jersey that protects the incumbents. There's other structural issues like, people having dual offices and like all these conflicts of interest in the system. But the ballot itself is the result of all these sort of other corrupt, what I think are corrupt practices, right? The way the ballot is designed, without getting into the details, gives the incumbent or the person who has the Democratic machine backing something, and I forget the studies. I was trying to find it before I got on, but it's something like a 30 or 40% advantage simply by where they're placed on the ballot. Forget campaigning on issues, forget about debates, forget about anything else. Just that ballot structure, that gives me as an insurgent an inordinate sort of obstacle. I think people should be primaried anyway, right, regardless of the obstacles, because I think it keeps people honest, and we could talk about kind of the things that our campaign has forced Pascrell to do. But there are some structural disadvantages to it. So
also welcoming our third original host of the show, Leah here. How you doing? When we talk about machine politics, we hear that word a lot. And states like, Illinois, Alaska, Pennsylvania, they're all kind of associated with being machine politics states. Can you, as somebody who is a candidate, can you talk a little bit about what that actually means? Like, what is a political machine, and how does it express itself in New Jersey? So
when I refer to the political machine here, I'm referring to the Democratic political machine because it is a blue state. So this basically is, it's basically the Democratic leaders, the Democratic Party, establishment party leaders who are in positions to influence not only hiring at the Board of Elections, but also ballot design because of their power and other things. And by the way, in order to get rid of sort of some of these structural issues we have in New Jersey, we need legislation. But the legislation has to come from people who are protected by the machine, who get the party line. In other words, so there's like a catch-22 here, right? And I'll give you one example of it. So my district straddles 3 counties: Passaic, Hudson, and Bergen County. Passaic County, the chairman of the New Jersey statewide Democratic Party is also the chairman of the Board of Elections. So this guy, his name is John Curry, is responsible for protecting Bill Pascrell and keeping him in office, and at the same time ensuring fair and transparent elections. Now, I'm not saying he didn't do that, but it is at least to me, a huge conflict to be sitting on both. And there are something similar happens in Bergen County as well with the chairman of the Democrats over there. So it's, that's what you're fighting. And unless things like that come to light, and most people don't understand it, right? It's complicated to really wrap your head around it, but our job as candidates, I think, is also to start educating the public that this is happening, right? That this exists. And I think any reasonable person would think that the person you shouldn't be letting the fox into the hen house, right?
Right.
Because people will, I'm not implying anything about Chairman Curry, but why does he need to be on both? Why does he need to be chairman for both?
Yeah, we had a similar situation in Georgia where the Secretary of State, who's in charge of counting the votes, was the actual candidate for governor. Your situation doesn't seem that nakedly corrupt, but it does seem to be an obvious conflict of interest.
Yeah,
just a little.
Yeah, I mean, can you kind of really like maybe just quickly lay it out for the people watching, like just how blatantly this is double dipping for maybe somebody who doesn't understand like what these two jobs are and how easily you could kind of feed power from one into the other and just kind of like get your hands in all these pies?
Yes, of course. So, so if you're in the leadership of the Board of Elections, you're ultimately responsible for not only hiring the personnel that do all the ballot counts, but also setting up policy and basically, making sure that the ballots are safe and that they're, basically that nothing can be, that nothing untoward can happen, right? You're supposed to have fair and transparent elections. And at the same time, the chairman of the New Jersey, whether it's, the New Jersey or the county specific ones, and in Bergen County, by the way, my other county, you have Chairman Giuliano of the Democrats, also the secretary of the Board of Elections for Bergen County. So something identical pretty much is happening there. At the same time, these folks, they run the Democratic Party here. One of their biggest jobs is obviously making sure that Democrats, their handpicked Democrats, are remain in office. And so part of the reason that I think Bill Pascrell has been so out of touch with this district is because he's really never had to campaign before. Outside of this year, where we forced him to actually campaign, call banks, and mailers, I had never seen anything come out of him, right, as far as campaigning. But so he felt threatened by some of because we had a huge field effort. So you have this sort of chairman. He's responsible for making sure Bill Pascrell stays in office, and at the same time, he's also responsible for counting the number of votes that Bill Pascrell gets. A reasonable person can infer whatever.
Right.
But, my question is that you shouldn't have that conflict in an election system. I mean, and I'm sure it probably happens in other states, but the thing that makes it even worse here in New Jersey is the way that the ballot is designed, right, at the county clerk level. And I can't speak to how much influence Democratic leadership has as far as hiring municipal employees. I don't have any data on that, but it's a small world, right? Why would the ballot? Go ahead.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about ballot design. Because we have a lot of candidates that talk about ballot design, but I don't think we've gone into it in real depth.
Yes.
So how does ballot design influence who gets voted for at the booth?
Okay. So you walk into a booth, or even the mail-in ballot that I voted on, and you have basically a big grid. Right. And in the primary election, you're only looking at a grid of your own party. So I, as a Democrat, I'm looking at all the Democratic folks. You have columns, right? You've got A, B, C, and it goes out. That first column, the A column, there was a study that you're supposed to be randomly placed on these columns. Okay. But there has been, and I should probably send you guys the studies for this, but there has been like a study that has shown that, column A surprisingly always goes to the Democratic establishment candidate. I don't remember a ballot, at least in New Jersey's 9th, that hasn't been designed like that. And that first column, it's sort of like when you go into a supermarket, the supermarket will put the really, the high margin items, the expensive items at eye level, right? When you're shopping. And like the cheaper stuff will go either up high or down below where you're not really looking. So that column.
You're saying they've got you with the bag of cereal. They got you down there with off-brand.
They've got so yes, and in fact, that's called Ballot Siberia here in New Jersey. So column A, you've got Bill Pascrell, and then you've got everybody else, right? And so you'll have a candidate sitting out in column D or E, who you're not going to are your eyes going to wander over there? It doesn't happen, right? So, and that's why, that's another reason I think that, you get inordinate amounts of people just they'll see. And then this year, they put Biden, the presumptive nominee for the Democratic Party, up at the top of the column. So it was Biden, Cory Booker, Bill Pascrell, and any down ballot candidates. So if you like Biden and you think you're going to vote for Biden in November as a Democrat, you probably will. You'll see Biden and you'll go tick, 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 tick down the line.
Right.
Regardless.
List.
So
Hector,
there is that.
Hector also complained about that they were doing the same thing for his opponent. So that's like a normal thing.
That is a normal thing.
Before I pass it off, it's normal and bad, and not like, oh, this is normal.
Yeah.
This is good. Our usual background for this show is the little GIF of the dog inside the burning house, and that's been our mood for like the last few weeks. Just everything is burning down, and people are trying to treat it like it's totally normal.
Fine.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not fine.
No.
Are you into the Jersey Globe? Is that a reputable news source according to you?
I don't. Any articles I've read there have been pretty factual. I don't know what its reputation is.
All right.
But yeah.
Well, here's something I found in the Globe yesterday.
Yeah.
Primary challengers seeking to oust incumbent members of Congress have gotten a third of the vote 9 times total in the last 4 decades. And if you think about the fact that we hold these elections across the state every 2 years, and New Jersey has a lot of districts, that is like an absurd, it's like gerrymandering to brand new extremes.
Yes.
It's rough.
That is the low probability event of getting hit by lightning.
Yeah.
That's what the stats tell you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild.
I mean, it's corrupt. It's corrupt. It doesn't allow fresh ideas in New Jersey. Even though we're a democratic state, and we try to be progressive, we're not really, for a variety of reasons, and we could talk about that as well. But
I was hoping next maybe we could talk about so when we talk about these people that are these Democratic chairs that have this power, this varies from state to state somewhat, but maybe you could talk a little bit about at least how in New Jersey, how does somebody get to be in that position? Why don't you have friends that you like inside these organizations? You know what I mean? What's preventing people like you from having, like I say, kind of friends on the inside of these organizations? Because we hear over and over again that there's no allies there for progressive candidates, right?
Yeah, there aren't. That's interesting. So that brings up reminds me of something that happened to me last year. So last year when I first announced, a friend of mine told me that the Bergen County Democratic establishment was having, they were having a what did they call it? A conference, or anyway, all the county committee members. And so the way the Democratic Party is structured here in New Jersey, it's county by county. You've got the leadership at the county level, and across the municipalities that are in that particular county, you have members that are Democrats from local towns that that filter that are part of this machine, right? And in order to get on that sort of that membership, you have to be elected, but it's it's not like you need 1,000 signatures to get on the ballot in any event. A friend of mine invited me to their conference last year, and they were basically figuring out the slate of candidates that were going to be on the Democratic ballot. For 2019, it was local elections in an odd number year. And I went in there thinking, there's going to be a debate amongst candidates and people are going to vote and it's going to be like a lively discussion of ideas. Boy, was I in for a surprise. I walk in and all I could see is people gathering in groups, a lot of people just going up to the table of their particular sort of municipality, signing off on whatever slate the leadership, the chairman and crew have given them, and walking back out. And I'm looking at this and it just happened. There's no debates. There are no candidates in there. It's basically, this is what we're giving you. You need to rubber stamp it, or we're going to throw you out, basically. I mean, there's, that last part, I mean, I can't confirm it, but it's sort of like, why would you rubber stamp it? And, if you're a Democrat and you want to get involved in politics because you want to do a good thing, supposedly, not to rubber stamp, things that the machine gives you. And they really try to, and I've heard stories from folks who are progressive, right, who are the vast minority in some of these county committees, that, to basically keep their mouths shut for fear of retaliation. So the anecdotal evidence, right? I don't have direct data on that, but, so that's what happened. So I went to a county committee meeting. It was a rubber stamping of the slate that the leadership had already decided in a back room. And so that happens every year, right? There's a candidate review process, right? Where they create the slate. And it's interesting because this year's candidate review process was for, federal and federal office, right? This year, it's a even number year. I was not invited to the candidate review in February. And it's funny, a reporter, the only reason I found out that there was a review is because I have a Google alert set up on Bill Pascrell's name, and it came across my newsfeed, right? And so I get a call from, I forget the reporter, and they're like, were you even invited to this thing? I said, no, I wasn't invited to the candidate screening. I just found out from this news article. But you can quote me in there saying I probably wouldn't have shown up because it's a bit of a sham process, right? And I think they kept me from having to confront one-on-one because Bill Pascrell was there, right? And you have to, at this candidate screening, supposedly you get up and you make your case on why you think you're the better candidate out of anybody else who's over there. And so I was not invited to that. So. And they knew full well that I was a candidate. At that point, it had been a year since I'd filed with the FEC. So
go ahead.
Let's talk a little bit about like the night of the election and like the next day, and how like there was a bit of just kind of like stalling and odd behavior on the part of like, especially like the election commissioners. And I just want to put this into context and say that, like, never forget that the mainstream media made the biggest deal in the world about some slightly late results in the Venezuela election. And that was supposed to have been enough to call that whole thing into question, and here we are, and we've had primaries that make that look like nothing. So, Zena, do you want to talk about like what kind of like the feeling was as the results were coming in and things were just like, kind of like, or not coming in, and things were kind of like,
so I'll give you like the first 48 hours, right? So, the polls close at 8 p.m. and, Amy Kennedy's race was like called by 9 p.m. or something like that. And all, they had enough data to do that, whatever. And for like the longest time, I'm like sitting there at 1.89%, right? I see all the other districts in New Jersey coming in, but mine was at 1.89%. And it was like that. And I thought, I went to bed that night thinking, okay, well, whatever. All the other progressives lost, maybe I'm in for the same fate. And I woke up the next morning and it's like, oh, it's still at 1.89%. At that point, I send out a tweet and I copy not only the Secretary of State, but also the governor. And I said, why is it that New Jersey's 9th congressional district, while all the other districts have gotten their data in, why is it that ours has not, right? I know that they started counting ballots, but none of them had been reported. Our campaign manager calls up the Board of Elections that morning, inquiring in Passaic County, which is a big chunk of our vote because Paterson is the 3rd largest city and it sits in Passaic County. Where are they? And so the person who's answering the phone at the Board of Elections basically says, well, they're not in today, but we'll take your name and your number. And I'm like, they're not in today. They've got to count like 80,000 vote by mail ballots and they're not doing that. And so I think, we did a bit of a pressure campaign on social media and we finally got them to like release another 3,600 votes, which is, we're expecting 80,000 around for the entire election. And so, we're still wondering where they are, right, from Passaic County. Bergen County has released a good chunk of theirs yesterday, which is great. But a lot of our work and field operation have been in Passaic County, and we still don't know. We've got like 13% of Passaic County still 3 or 4 days out that hasn't reported. The last time I checked this morning, I haven't checked it in a few hours, but I was checking the New York Times site. So they were out that day. Now, either the person who was on the phone with us was uninformed,
Right.
But regardless of whether they are uninformed, they can't be telling, they're telling us that the election commissioners are just not in that day, the day after the election. And this is a big, densely populated county, right?
Election commissioners, you only work a few days out of the year. What
right? And I'm like, I used to be a COO, right? And I can tell you, if that sort of like, if that was the work ethic of people, they would have been. I mean, they would have been called in first and given a warning, but you don't act that way, right? That's your job. It's your job to count ballots. That's all you're doing. Yeah, you've got one job to do.
Leah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Leah, go ahead. What do you feel about? How do you feel about all this that's been going down? And you take the floor as needed.
Oh man, it is not surprising. It is definitely not surprising after, and this feels like years and years ago, the debacle in Iowa.
Right.
I still remember staying up hour after hour as like 10, the results were supposed to come in and we had nothing, then we had nothing, and then we had like 0.5%, 1%, and then the days turned into like a week, and it was just clear that they don't give a shit.
Well,
they know that it appears blatantly corrupt and they don't care.
You don't just have experience as a poster, but you have experience as someone who's run a campaign in a deep blue state that has machine politics. Like, not to drag out your actual credentials, but can you talk a little bit about like what is the relationship in your neck of the woods back then between insurgent candidates and the current party in power?
Yeah, give a little extra.
We didn't necessarily run an insurgent candidacy. The seat was open, and the seat was a Republican seat.
Right.
And we managed to kind of easily slip into the machine supported slot. But one thing I will tell you is that, and it has been out for a while. I forget when the DCCC applied this rule, but the DCCC said that any candidate that challenges an incumbent is not entitled to support funds. And let me tell you, so much in our office was funded with support funds. Like the folding plastic tables were bought with party money. The phones, the burner phones that we did phone banking on, those were party money.
Right.
Everything was party money. And I didn't have the experience of going through an insurgent campaign. But what I do know is that there is so much that the party will give you. And I can only imagine that not only that being taken away, but you being actively obstructed by the party. And we had a bad enough time on our own fending off the Republicans. But if we had to do not only fending off from the Republicans, but the Democrats, and we didn't have all of the things that the party gave us, they were actively obstructing us, it would have been hell. I cannot imagine that.
So Zena, I think that's a perfect setup for you to kind of talk about what is that like when the party has sort of shut you out of the resources in terms of like running this kind of campaign, and like, what do you think some next steps are to maybe try to like do something about this?
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, the DCCC, I mean, they're, when I first sort of launched my candidacy, I was calling around to like, various vendors for various things, and they would find out that I was running against a Democrat, and they're like, oh, sorry, can't help you. Right. That's one thing. You become, you run because you think you can do some good. It's a hard thing to do. It takes up, you could talk to any candidate. Your entire personal life is turned upside down for like a year and a half. And you're trying to work for people who you're trying to work for the voiceless, right? And so the Democratic Party, at least here in New Jersey, has lost its footing. I think, frankly, the integrity of its leadership is in question because they're no longer working for the people who put them in office. You walk into these voting booths and these people are just simply rubber stamping that column A, right? Our campaign, so I was forced to like find, digital vendors, other vendors that were, not DCCC, that didn't fear the DCCC's blacklisting, right, of them if they worked with me. And what I found actually was a set of like progressives who, they're running these small shops. They are highly creative, they're highly intelligent, and also they want to, sort of bring that soul of the Democratic Party back to where it should be, right? And so they're not just vendors; they've got skin in the game, sort of thing, as well, because they feel so passionately about it. And quite honestly, I'll just bring up like my digital shop, right? They're progressive, they're smart, they are on the cutting edge of what's happening digitally, and I don't think I can say that about any of the vendors that I spoke to that were DCCC sort of vendors, right? They have their way of running campaigns, and it's worked for them for decades, and they're not going to evolve or adapt to the changing media landscape, the changing communication landscape. Because let's face it, in the last 10 years, I mean, we've seen the destruction of newspapers, right? That's where people would get information about candidates. But right now, information is so distributed, right, on the internet that you have to find these sort of silos of where people are and speak to them there, right? So, what can you do? I think the only, what you need to do, at least here in New Jersey, is start dismantling some of these sort of conflicts of interest, where you've got dual position holders, you've got the line system, and I believe there's a lawsuit that's developing here in New Jersey to address the line system. But I think we start sort of getting rid of these conflicts, and I think, it becomes easier then for insurgents the running a campaign becomes more of a level playing field, right? More of a level, and that's all you want as a candidate. I just want to be able, and I just want to be able to get on a show like this and, let me debate with Bill Pascrell what I would do about the climate crisis, what I would do about, police reform, or what I would do about healthcare. And if you agree with me, then you vote for me. But if you don't agree with me, then you vote for him, and that's fine. And that's an election, and that's a democracy. But what it is right now is what's an oligarchy.
A click-based system, yeah.
It's a click-based system, and it's not even run efficiently, right? It's not even run competently, I think, in a lot of respects. So,
yeah.
We have certainly.
We can get into one more, I think, really important topic.
Yeah.
Leah, what do you
What do you
got?
got, Leah, though?
I was just going to say that it's certainly a theme among shows that we have done, machine-based politics and clique-based politics. Be it like we said, the Iowa caucus, or the debacle with the Green Party and Ian Schlachman that we covered previously.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, there is corruption in the system.
Yes,
I don't know if you know.
This exists in all organizations of all sizes. And it's really important that people who are like outside of those systems and don't typically think of them as important understand that they are, and start like putting pressure on these people, or calling their lawyer to put pressure on their behalf, which often can be pretty effective in order to create a more equal playing field. Kennedy, take the floor.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, well, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for giving us your time today. I know that you're on a bit of a tight schedule. I want to talk about one more topic, if we can, really quick, which is just, I know that your campaign, you and your campaign are definitely like not planning to just lie down and say, okay, yeah, whatever happened with this situation that you're looking at. I know brand new Congress is to also like they want answers for some of the elections that have happened in the last couple of weeks, and yours in particular is one that like they're talking about like let's get some accountability on this election. So Zena, would you please speak to like kind of what the plans are to like maybe try to force a little extra accountability out of the situation, and also like what ways can people who are watching get involved, and like are there maybe some Twitter accounts they need to follow, some websites they need to go to? What do they need to do?
Okay, yeah, there's I think what happens, I think we need to start planning for 2021 right now, because 2021 is state level elections here in New Jersey, and a lot of these legislators need to be primaried. If they're not going to support fair elections, if they're not going to change regulations that surround how a ballot is designed, or how, whether the chairman of a party can sit on the board of elections or anything like that, right? And there's other things as well. Then they need to be not only highlighted, but they also need to be primary. And I think what and this is like a marathon, right? This isn't going to happen in a year, but we start replacing some of these party machine, these corporate Democrats, frankly, with progressives, right? You need to have people who are less likely to be corrupted by the system in positions of power that affect everything from what's happening in the climate to whether, my neighbor has health care. And, we need to be a party that thinks about the most vulnerable among us, the family that does not have insurance, whose little boy gets into an accident and has to go to an emergency room. They should not have to think about the fact that they might have to pay $5,000 to $10,000 in an emergency room visit, right? If it's a serious accident. And we need to start looking at the legislators who will support some of these reforms. And if you do not support some of these are democratic reforms. We're not asking for anything radical, right? We're asking for the soul of the democracy. If you do not support us, then we will primary you. We will primary you, and we will do it year after year after year until your positions start moving or until you're out of office. And so, I have to say, I'm very proud of our campaign. We got Pascrell actually to move on certain things, and we even got his largest cop money endorsee to pull their endorsement because we forced him into voting to end qualified immunity, right? That was like a month-long pressure campaign. So, whether we win or lose, who knows? But we have made change. And that's the sort of stuff that I want people, if you're listening to it, to support New Jersey. There are various organizations that you should support. There's the Progressive Democrats of New Jersey organization. There's Our Revolution of New Jersey that is doing good work. But, it's all the progressive organizations, New Jersey chapters that you would typically follow. So. Yeah.
Do you know what you're doing in the future yet? Are you going to run for one of these things? Are you going to go back into business? Are you going to
right.
talk online and see what happens? Or are you going to just take a break for a little bit and see?
Yeah, Brandon, I've got, I've got a 6-year-old and I've got an 8-year-old, and I miss them. So I'm not making any decision for a month because I just want to, I got to stay with my kids.
That's fair. Yeah.
That's very fair, man.
I just want to, before we go, I want to remind everybody, 866 Our Vote is an organization that if you personally feel like there's fraud happening in your elections, your votes aren't being counted for some reason, and you want to try to personally fight for some accountability in your area and with an organization that's working on a national scale, 866 Our Vote is a great org to go check out, and they can really help you plug in with the resources to help you know if your vote is being counted or if it's not.
There are lawyers around the country just salivating to take bites at this stuff. I know there are plenty of lawyers occupied in New Jersey right now, and that process is just going to keep going and continue. So, yeah, if you're in the middle of a situation on your ground floor level where something is not right, there's lots of help on hand for you, especially if it's not November 3rd. And it's like an off-state primary election. You can get a lot of help from folks like that.
Zenas Bazakis, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
On this issue. We really appreciate having you come and personally tell the story of what's going on in your district and with your election. I think that, people are going to watch this and they're going to wonder what the heck is going on. And hopefully a lot of people are going to be as hungry for answers as all of us are here.
Hopefully. But
thank you guys
for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, we've been Not Safe for Wonks at NSF Wonks on Twitter, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.